It seems that in recent weeks, some YouTubers have gotten the wrong idea about Boros when it comes to how he fares against Invincible's heavy hitters, and thus have downplayed one of Saitama's greatest opponents in the series of One Punch Man. Don't worry though, comrades, because we're here today to right the wrongs with a tier list that will show the dominator of the universe the respect he deserves. Right out of the gate, we need to address the facts. Boros is planetary minimum, with it being very easy in today's day and age to label him as large planetary and even star. The nature of Boros is likely not lost on most of you by this point in time, so I'll try to keep it brief. And if you're already so clued up on Boros that you could tell me what cereal he eats, then just use the timestamps to go to the tierings. So, when in his released form, Boros is likely planetary already, judging by his ability to earn acknowledgement from Saitama, who called him strong, something Saitama doesn't say lightly. He didn't use that word for Tatsumaki, who can be scaled to planetary or even large planetary, and when it came to Flashy Flash, who is faster than light, Saitama only noted that he was kinda fast. From this we can gather that Unsealed Boros is both planetary and faster than light, and we haven't even begun on Meteoric Burst by this point. With Meteoric Burst activated, Boros takes it to a new level. In this form, he was able to momentarily shock Saitama with his display of speed alone. Considering that faster than light Flashy Flash and Unsealed Boros didn't surprise him, this speaks volumes about Meteoric Burst's combat speed. You may say he is generously faster than light at this point, or perhaps even many times faster than light, depending on how you take it. Added to this, it must be acknowledged that people tend to not give this particular reaction enough credit. He surprised Saitama with his speed. Being fast enough to surprise someone is one thing. Being fast enough to surprise Saitama, the character known throughout all of fiction for being absurdly powerful, is another. To use an analogy, if you were to impress your friend Tony from down the road with your boxing skills, it probably wouldn't say much. But if you were to impress Muhammad Ali with your boxing skills, it indicates that you most certainly can box. People who try to downplay Boros' speed need to remember he took a comically overpowered hero by surprise, not some general shonen character who's made to face regular struggles. This brings us to the rest of his Meteoric Burst's form's offerings. It improves all of his functions, so naturally his strength increases too, as shown by the ability to hit people so hard they can fly to the moon without the whole world questioning if it was CGI and a green screen 50 years later. Boros also has the ability to use a technique called Collapsing Star Roaring Cannon. It was widely debated once upon a time whether this was multi-continental or planetary, but in case you haven't been keeping track of it, planetary is now the low ball, with star level being mostly accepted due to official information and translations providing legitimacy. It's now very easy to label Boros as star level because of this material, which has been greenlit by one and or Murata himself. But in case you really don't want to accept that, planetary or large planetary is absolutely fine too. With all of this, we can't forget about Boros' general ability to fire off energy beams, and of course he has disgusting levels of regeneration, which by the way tend to downplay his own durability. Often we see people saying Boros can regenerate from attacks when put against opposition who are weaker than casual Saitama. One must remember that it's Saitama who is punching his arms off and splattering him into pieces for him to regenerate. Unless you are planetary in most of your attacks, harming Boros enough to require him to regenerate lost limbs or missing flesh is likely not even going to be something you need to concern yourself with in the first place. So, to neatly summarize this all, since I am trying, believe it or not, to avoid over-explaining Boros' capabilities, you can label him large planetary with faster than light combat speed if you're being skeptical while still acknowledging the material, or star level and even many times faster than light in combat if you freely accept all of the stated and suggested narrative. Probably throughout this section, alongside any specific material shown, you've seen clips and panels of Boros' outrageous ability to melt through, explode and overwhelm the surrounding environment of his enormous spaceship with his physical prowess alone. So I'll assume you don't need too much more convincing from here. If you really do have a problem with what I said, you are allowed to go and find an objective Boros scaling video or thread, and if they are not intentionally misinterpreting or holding official material back, you'll find all of this to be above water. This list will mainly go by the Amazon show, so for the Invincible fans who do not want comic spoilers, toward the end is where I'll put the characters not seen in the show yet, so you can still watch most of this without heavy spoilers. and don't worry, I'll put a warning. Tiering is pretty self-explanatory. Each tier suggests which Boros form each invincible character could reach, so we'll just gloss over this part for today. Sealed, unsealed, meteoric burst, collapsing star roaring cannon, and defeats Boros. The poster boy, Mark Grayson, opens the list for us, and from everything we've seen in the show so far, he goes in the defeats Boros category. Can you imagine? All of that Boros build up just to say he loses to season 1 Mark. I think the comment section would kick me to the moon if I pulled that stunt. No, but seriously now, season 3 Mark is the weakest on this list, but still by no means a slouch. Despite some poor showings against certain monsters and challenging situations, Mark is still someone who can go blow for blow with the likes of Conquest, even if he's not quite capable of being able to defeat him on his own. The biggest issue Mark faces here is that he's not skilled enough to hold his own against the likes of Boros in terms of fighting talent alone, and compounding that is the fact that Boros majorly overwhelms him in power, speed, and durability long before he ever gets anywhere close to going all out. Season 3 Mark has zero answers for Boros and would get beaten so badly that he wouldn't even be able to think of the questions to those answers in the first place. I know it will sound disrespectful, but if there's anyone on this list who may even get defeated by a sealed Boros here, it's probably going to be Amazon's Invincible himself. He's been bruised by Reaniman, knocked senseless by monsters of the week, and taken down by situations which Boros wouldn't even need to get out of his chair for. One day, Mark will be able to outrun the anti-feats, but in the 3 seasons of Amazon's Invincible, he still has yet to finish that race. So I'll continue to hold them against him. Sealed for Amazon's Mark Grayson. Yes, Nolan, I am sure. But since you're here, it's time to see if you can make a second one-eyed friend. Like father, like son is a classic saying, but it doesn't quite track here since Omni-Man still holds a fair bit of power over the likes of Invincible at this point in the story, as he's most reasonably placed around multi-continental to moon level at best. I think it's fair to say that I could imagine Nolan being able to earn the privilege of removing Boros' armor, which sounds quite romantic when you phrase it that way. However, that's where the not so romantic experience will truly begin for the Viltrumite. We've seen evidence that while Nolan is far stronger, the likes of Immortal, Warwoman, and even Red Rush were able to inflict damage upon him, to the point where Omni-Man was left hospitalized in a coma against people whose attacks are far beneath that of what an unsealed Boros can emit. Beaten, bloodied, and bruised by panicking guardians of the globe, this level of vulnerability is further corroborated by how even Reanimen were able to make him scream in pain, how an amped kaiju practically wrecked him before Mark stepped in, and so on. While I'm not suggesting that just any old thing could hurt Nolan, it's clearly narratively suggested that he's not invulnerable and very open to taking damage from significant characters. Characters who wouldn't even make it to Boros' throne room within his ship, let alone to Boros himself. Added to the fact that unsealed Boros would not only be faster in combat than Omni-Man, but also able to take literally any attack that Nolan is capable of, durability wise and regeneration wise. Nolan would be getting hit by punches and kicks that are stronger than anything he has ever felt in his life. Anything Omni-Man can do, Boros can do better, harder, faster, and with energy projection thrown in for the fun of it. Unsealed for Omni-Man, who simply cannot keep up with Boros nor do anything to him of any consequence. And if you weren't conquesting it to this video already, you will be now, because the Conquester himself has arrived for his placement. It's Conquest from Invincible's latest season. Like Omni-Man, Conquest is usually placed most accurately around the multi-continental to moon level, albeit with a focus for being more consistently stronger than the likes of Omni-Man. More or less, simply speaking, with obvious personality characteristics aside, he is Omni-Man, but at a partially higher level. Not enough to put him with the likes of Battle Beast or Thragg, yet enough for most fans to generally agree he goes above Mark's daddy. Whether you agree that Conquest is above Nolan or not, since there are some conversations Invincible fans have disputing that, if we just go ahead and say that he is, it paints a similar enough picture for how much fun he's going to have against Boros. And the answer to that is a lot, which is opposite to the amount of success he would have against Boros. Against Mark, Conquest was walloped hard enough to blow out a heart bubble of blood. Against Boros' strikes, he might have his actual heart knocked out from his mouth. The Dominator of the universe will show Conquest nice and early that this is a fight he can't just stroll through, and no matter what Conquest manages to inflict upon Boros, if anything significant at all, Boros would be more than capable of receiving it and regenerating from it. The beam Eve fried him with is peanuts compared to what Boros can put out, and Mark Strikes, which stopped Conquest from conquesting it, are nowhere near Boros' unsealed power either. So with all of that said, unsealed tier stand for Conquest's arrival. Alan is up next for the challenge against Boros, who looks like his species' cooler cousin with nicer hair and fashion design taken from Yu-Gi-Oh cards. But Alan is not to be intimidated. It's at this point in the video, if you haven't been skipping around, that you've likely noticed I haven't made much comment on Invincible characters' combat speed capabilities. Well, I'm glad you noticed, because I'll briefly take a look at it right now. It is generally accepted that Invincible characters can fly many times the speed of light in space where the conditions allow them to do so without resistance or meaningful obstacles. Some fans take this to mean that they can engage in hand-to-hand combat at this same speed, despite the series constantly and consistently showing this to not be the case. However, despite all of the narrative evidence proving they're not faster than light in combat, the argument remains. And the backbone of that claim has to do with a certain line of text within an official Invincible guidebook. That line is Alan's reflexes being enhanced in direct proportion to speeds attained while flying. So let's break that down. When speaking about Alan, who is more powerful than anyone mentioned in this list so far, which is handy for me since it addresses the previous characters at once by addressing Alan alone, the guidebook states this, which I'll put on screen for us to look at. In a planet's atmosphere, it takes him seconds, that's seconds plural, to reach Mach 10. If you are taking seconds to reach Mach 10 in flight, then you are not reaching light speed in the context of fighting, because it's taking you less than seconds to throw a punch, kick, or what have you. With Invincible characters' bread and butter speed ratings always coming down to their flight instead of their actual portrayed combat speed, that knocks the legs out from them being able to reach light speed in combat movements if they still take multiple seconds to reach Mach 10 with their flying movements, as hand-to-hand combat movements at this level require less than multiple seconds to perform. Second, this follows up with the next line. If Alan is not reaching light speed level movements in combat, then his reactions are not being enhanced to light speed in the first place, because as the handbook implies, he doesn't gain those reactions if he himself is not operating at that speed. So if he's not reaching light speed, then no light speed reactions. If he is currently at light speed, such as when he's zooming around in the emptiness of space, then he might. Similar to how an Air Force pilot can control a fighter jet at high speeds above his own human reactions because of how this stuff works. Therefore, if Alan is only reaching Mach 10 in combat speed, his reactions can only be enhanced in proportion to Mach 10. As an example. Third, the line "perform complicated aerial maneuvers with ease" suggests that all of this doesn't even refer to fighting purpose in the first place. And this whole proportionate reactions business people use as a gotcha moment not only debunks themselves, but can be solely interpreted as within the confines of flight alone, and not matters of hand-to-hand combat. No one describes fighting as complicated aerial maneuvers. It's as if I were to go out jogging but tell my friends, hey, I'm just gonna go out to perform some long distance leg movements. And finally, there's the matter that this is stated to be within a planet's atmosphere. So maybe he can do all of the stuff people say he can if Alan, or another Invincible character relative to him, fights Boros in space. Okay, in the aspect of fairness, I hear you there. But if Alan can't attain light speed combat within a planet, and Boros can, then we go to space, and Alan can finally fight at light speed. What do you think Boros is going to be capable of? Because all of the planetary resistance is gone for him too now. So what about that? Since giving Alan the benefit of space as a battleground now amps up Boros even further, since he's fast enough to do what Alan can't within atmosphere. So now you've went and made Boros even faster than before instead, meaning Alan gets cooked even worse. I want to apologize for how long-winded this section got, but I really have been trying to keep this condensed, since if I went into everything about why Invincible isn't at lightspeed combat level, then this vid becomes way longer. So now we've settled that Boros is faster than all of them in combat, and significantly, Alan's back on the recovery table after getting overwhelmed by unsealed Boros. In this form, he's already stronger and faster than Alan, not to mention whatever Alan can do, which would take all of his effort and strength to even achieve, Boros regenerates from it without issue regardless. Sorry about all of that, but if I didn't at least put some addressing to the speed, I'm sure we'd all have to read in the comments about how Viltrumites can operate at 5 quintillion times the speed of light in combat whenever they want, despite being consistently tagged by the likes of Reanimen, the Mauler twins, Angstrom, Immortal, random creatures, and even the GOAT himself, Rexplode. Still, I held back a lot of extra material on Thurber points, but that should be enough. On a quick note, I am aware of the spaceship panel. A lot of people also love that for Alan. We don't know exactly how fast that ship was moving in that context, which makes it unreliable though. We know how fast those ships can go, but on panel we don't know how fast it was going at the time, nor how that scene looked in real time. And the point about Alan versus Boros in space also takes care of that for this video anyway. So yeah, the Lion King arrives for tearing now. By the fur color and the look in his eyes, it seems like he's been rolling around in cocaine all day. But in reality, it's just Battle Beast showing up for a good time. We've gone a level above Alan now, and with Battle Beast on the job, we're looking at somebody who is usually placed around the small planetary ranges of power, with some saying he can reach planetary, albeit that is more generous in ways which isn't backed up as well by how one would get Boros to star from planetary. The best fighter of the bunch from all of the people who have appeared on this list so far, Battle Beast truly lives up to his name and has an assortment of techniques and weapon skill to inflict mass amounts of damage. Whether or not someone could harm Boros enough to realistically require him to regenerate significantly has been a contention point up until now in this video, but with his weapons and strength, I think Battle Beast could adequately harm Boros if given the opportunities to. However, the problem lies in whether or not Battle Beast is fast enough to truly receive those opportunities in the first place, of which Boros will regenerate from either way. With that being said, while I think the case for Boros needing to leave his unsealed form would be debatable due to his immense speed advantage and inherent power advantage, I think Boros would perhaps feel enough respect from Battle Beast's tenacity to allow him the chance to witness true overwhelming power, and thus I think he would enter Meteoric Burst as a measure of courtesy, to which would mark the end of this affair. Whether or not Boros needs to do this is questionable, but I think if Battle Beast can hold out long enough, Boros would reveal it anyway. Meteoric Burst for Battle Beast, but I don't think he'd have to. Alright, Amazon only viewers, time for you to dip out unless you don't mind the comic spoilers. We're past the show's point now, so don't say I didn't warn you. Thragg, the dominator of immaculate hairlines and moustache genetics, isn't here to play around. Judging by the fact that Thragg was able to defeat our previous contestant, Battle Beast, after a grueling and bloody battle which lasted for days, yes, days, a battle which took them both to their limits, it's fair to say that he'll be able to earn the same amount of appraisal from our one-eyed star. Again, while I'm sure there's arguments to be made for Boros in his unsealed form to be more than enough for the likes of small planetary or generous planetary Thragg, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that his efforts inspire Boros to whip out the Super Saiyan 3 Marshmallow mode. Unsealed Boros would be around as powerful as Thragg in terms of attacking output while having a likely speed advantage and superior regeneration. But when Meteoric Burst comes out to play, whatever chances Thragg would have get shaved, like all of the hair on his face, which isn't above his upper lip. Upon Meteoric Burst, Thragg will not be able to keep up, will not be able to take the increased power, nor be able to really do much of anything to the incredible force which is Boros. Again, it's important to note that whatever you've seen Saitama do to Boros is not something you should expect anyone else to replicate unless they are beyond the scale of star power, something Thragg is not. So imagining Thragg to replicate the movements and power Saitama did to Boros, Meteoric Burst or not, is wildly inaccurate and shows ignorance to what Saitama's entire deal is. Same thing with people thinking characters like Thragg will just no-sell everything done to him physically by Boros like Saitama did. Saitama is effectively undamageable within this scale, so Thragg and everyone beneath him will be more than feeling the effects of every hit from Boros, and not just tanking hits to no consequence like Saitama is known to. Some people also like to make the claim that Thragg fought in the sun, like it was something he did for hours with no issue. But the sun cooked him when he actually went into it, and clearly fighting next to the sun and inside of it had incredibly different results for Thragg. Results that very clearly showed he did not like it, and his body was immediately not a fan of it. It even disintegrated his corpse after the fight. So no, he can't just hang out inside of the sun if he wanted. Credit must be given to Thragg for enticing this mode out from Boros in the first place though. Again, probably by choice and not necessity, but the collapsing star roaring cannon is not required to execute Thragg, as Boros' mere physical power will be enough to destroy this Viltrumite as it is. Meteoric Burst tier. And last but not least, we have the end of series mark. I thought I'd throw this one in here briefly since it really gets covered by the Thragg section. Again, just so I'm not taking too much more of your time, Boros does not need to perform the collapsing star roaring cannon to take this version of Mark out. End of series Mark has never displayed anything to suggest he can keep up with Boros, nor is he at his level of power, energy projection, or regeneration. Unfortunately for a lot of Invincible, they don't have any particular abilities which can overcome Boros' level of regen. So even if they could stand blow for blow with him in combat, the Viltrumite body will begin to break down from the damage taken before Boros' regeneration will give out, especially if he's not using his collapsing star roaring cannon, as that leaves him with plenty of energy to do what he wants, however he wants it. Meteoric Burst tier for end of series Mark. Now, you can say this video was a little too one-sided, and I'd agree. However, like I said, there were a suspicious few videos lately absolutely downplaying Boros against Invincible characters. So some justice had to be done. And what better way to do it than a tier list where Boros puts the Invincible heavyweights in check, resuming his place as the dominator of the universe and showing everyone why he very well might be the coolest 2-episode villain in the history of anime. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.